My name is Pascal Kip Kemboy, a resident born and raised in Kibera informal settlement. I've been working in KDI for 7 years, mainly working as a community coordinator to support the community engagement process in all our interventions that actually we are doing within that informal settlement. I also support in research work that we started earlier to 2016. KDI, we actually work with under-resourced community to create productive public spaces within the informal settlement. My presentation today, I will focus on one slum, three upgrades, and the lesson that actually we have learned from it as a community building the resilient in Kibera. On this actually is one of like the activities and programs that we usually carry within our work, just to create community awareness and also to have introduced our process before we set up any interventions. We also have the history of where we are working, which is Kibera. And as you can see, these photos here tells you in 1940s where we had only the Nubian community within that informal settlement, who were the first people to settle there. As you can see, there is actually a lot of open space. And on my far right here, there is a clear Nairobi Dam, which actually collects water from the Ngong River. And it was really clean by that time. This photo here, we took it on like 2015, whereby it shows the same informal settlement, Kibera, and you can see how dense it is by 2015 with a lot of development, and also the Nairobi Dam, it's now already closed with the green on top of it because of like how dense the informal settlement growth. Some of like the challenges with the dense and the changes from 40s to 2015 up to now, the community there facing a lot of flooding and people and also the structure are carried by water, and there is a lot of like sickness, disease outbreak that actually they face during any rainy season, in terms of like how dense and the waste management issues are actually within those informal settlement, and how actually the development from within the settlement bring all these challenges to those informal settlements. So we've got some few lessons from one slum, three upgrading that actually I will take you through. So those three upgrades, which are KENSAP, the railway line, and the NYS. The KENSAP project is Kenya Slum Upgrading. The type of project is actually housing, amenities, enabling infrastructure. The lead government agency were Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning, Ministry of Housing. The scale of the project was 822 units, Soweto East, 613 units, Langata, which actually was the decanting where people were moved from Soweto East to Langata for a period of time before the phase one is finished. The status of the project in 2018, phase one was actually finished and people are already in. The railway line project, which is actually Nairobi Railway Line Relocation Action Plan, the type of the project housing, business units, railway line reserve rehabilitation. The lead government agency is actually Kenya Railway Line Authority. The scale of the project, 10,000 units, which actually the estimate was 30 million US dollar. The status of the project is actually partially occupied and still in construction in some of the areas, which actually they stopped sometimes, but they're continuing. And then we have the National Youth Service Kibera Slum Upgrading Initiative, which was focusing on road widening, water, sanitation, and solid waste management, sewer line, micro businesses employment. The lead government agency was Ministry of Devolution and Planning, National Youth Service. The scale of the project was 3 kilometers of trunk sewer line, which was to be actually to be created within that informal settlement. 3 kilometers of road and 100 plus abolition block within the informal settlement. The status of the project is stalled, which actually it's already incomplete. And you can see the photos of those interventions that is actually on the bottom line here. So in all those 3 upgrades, they started all in almost the same time. As you can see in Kensap Zone A, they started the zoning in 2009, and resident also engagement and the process of talking to them actually took from 2010, 2011, 2012. Construction, which actually started in 2014, 2015, and now in 2016, 2017, 2018, actually they occupied the houses. We have the railway line, which actually started the same time as the Kensap, which is like in 2019. Engagement community process actually took 2010, 2011. That is actually collecting the names of the families, filing the documentation and the process. And then the construction began in 2014, 2015, 2016, and in 2017, there the already occupation of like some of the structures, and still it's ongoing. These maps here show the location of all the intervention inside Kibera. So as you can see, we've got the dotted red and black in this map here, which is like the NYS project. We've got also the red line here, which actually is like the Kensap. And we have got like the railway line project, which is cutting across in Kibera. So we've got, as I say earlier, this is actually the railway line, and you can see it. You can actually see it in this map, which is actually it's the Kensap, which you can see it far in Soweto East, where the residents actually were moved to the Kanting side, which is like far in Langata area. We have like the railway line, which is cutting across the Kibera informal settlement. And you can see we have got some gaps in it, that this is where some of like the structures have already been completed, and the residents have already occupied the structures, and the dotted ones, which is incomplete yet. And we also have the NYS within that informal settlement. You can see it all over the area. So those are like the three interventions that actually was going on within that informal settlement. And this here is like the Kensa project photo, now incomplete in Zone A, Soweto East. This is the decanting in Langata side, where people were relocated to stay for some few years before getting back to Soweto East. These photos here tell actually the railway line project that the intention was creating the buffer zone due to some injuries and some of like, we've got an incident of like the train falling down and creating a lot of damages with the people trying to encroach the railway line. So that is the intention, and you can see the picture tells out. After finishing, they have already demolished all the structures that are within that area. And this is like the NYS project. You can see there is like a abolition block here and the road widening that actually it has got a lot of changes within the informal settlement. We've got drainage and pathway that actually is already created with the NYS project. We also interview and plus the FGDs within this informal settlement in 13 villages which are there in the informal settlement, just to have a better understanding how these interventions affect the residents, either with their social cohesion or their social contract. So that is the intention of us trying to understand what are some of like the challenges the residents are facing with this big intervention within the informal settlement. Also, we learn about how these two different interventions actually and approaches and process, and also after the project, how did the resident actually take the process. And you can see clearly on this, on my right hand, the Kensa project is actually very huge structures with less community relations. And as you can see on the railway line, it's already pick up. The residents have already started their business, doing their washing. They have got a walk path within that area. And this is two different interventions, servicing, giving the service to the community in a two different ways. And those are some of the learnings that we find out of like these interventions. We also get to understand how multi-sectoral intervention, that is the NYS, that brings about different activities, different approaches within this intervention, compared also to Kensa, which is more of like just housing and resident in it, having a good house, but actually having a lot of like different gaps within that. We actually, on this one here, it's actually talk on like some of like the KDI work that actually we are doing within that informal settlement. And that is like the research that we started in 2016, trying just to have a better understanding also on how this intervention are like being internalized by the community. So we have a better idea of like the blue dotted there is like just asking them how good the intervention of the project was. And the outcome was actually, you can see the blue dotted talks about whether it was a good idea or not. And out of that, we get like 300 say it's a good idea. We've got 31 say actually it was not a good idea. And we've got like 4 who actually respond like they don't know about it. And then we've got one who actually refused to answer that question. So this is how actually we get to have a better understanding of how this big intervention get to impact the livelihood of people in an informal settlement. And for those few remarks, I just have to say thank you, Gideon, for listening and to have given me this session. Thank you very much.